So now that we've been doing a lot of work on building your communication skills and how you guys talk to each other, I want to kind of take the next step into an exercise about kind of the cycle you guys get in with the issue we've been talking about, which is Walter. You sometimes feel like you want to distance yourself, so you'll go to work, and Giselle, you feel like your needs aren't being met. So I want to take that issue and kind of hone in on it and see what it is you guys are thinking and feeling about it and how that's affecting the way that you act towards each other. So I'm going to start with you, Giselle. In the last week or so, can you think of a time that this dynamic has kind of played out in a specific issue?
Well, last Tuesday, I decided that I was going to plan our son Alex's birthday, which is in January. And I wanted to make it special because it's his first birthday. You know how that is. But I felt like Walter wasn't engaged in the situation, and I wasn't very happy about the situation.
Elaborate a little bit on Walter not being engaged. What did he do to upset you?
He went to the office. He just went back to the office, and I felt very blown off by the fact that this was our son's first birthday. Like, I felt like you should have been engaged in the situation.
Okay. All right. Well, so I want to focus on kind of what your experience of it, and then we're going to talk to Walter about it. So you felt like Walter didn't really take it seriously, so he left and went to the office.
Yes, I felt like he just blew it off.
That's where you had an issue.
Yes.
Starting. Okay. So, what were the kind of the feelings you were experiencing when Walter left and went to the office?
I felt hurt. I felt really, I felt angry by the fact that you thought your work was more important than our son.
Okay, so I'm hearing the emotions we're identifying. You felt angry and you felt hurt. All right, good job. Good identification of the way you're feeling. So now I want to explore kind of what thoughts were going through your head when you felt angry.
I felt like that he thought that work was more important than what we had planned. And I know it's just a first birthday and some people think that's important, but I think that's important for our son.
Okay, so what was going through your head was that work was more important than you.
Yes, I felt like he thought that our work was more important than our son's first birthday.
Okay, and that's okay. We're gonna come back to the way you felt about it in just a minute. So you felt angry and you were kind of telling yourself work is more important than me and Alex.
Yes.
So when you were feeling hurt, what was the thought that was kind of going through your head?
What at work could be more important than your family? I understand fiscally.
Okay, so that's good. That's more of a question though that you're posing to Walter. So what was the thought that you were thinking?
That he thinks work is more important than our family.
Okay. Okay. So you're thinking that work is more important than your family. Were there any other thoughts that you had?
It's pretty much what I thought, is that if I was trying to plan this, and I kind of, you're right, I didn't specifically sit him down and say, we need to plan this, because it is in January, it's coming up, but I figured if I mentioned it to him, he would feel engaged.
Okay. So we've got our emotions identified and kind of the automatic thought you had when we were having those emotions. So what maybe are some different interpretations you can think of for why Walter left and went to work and didn't help you plan? Can you think of any other reason he might have done that besides kind of the thoughts that you had right then?
Well, I mean, as any woman would, married woman, there's obviously the assumption that your husband is doing things at work besides work.
Oh my gosh.
I know, I'm sorry.
You'll have your
Okay, let me ask the question a little bit.
It's not personal.
Let me ask the question a little bit different way. So, when you're thinking work is more important than me and Alex, what are maybe some more helpful ways you could think about what he's doing at work? What are some alternative interpretations for why he left to work?
There could be a lot going on at work, but I feel like...
Okay, so there could be a lot going on at work.
I feel like sometimes you just don't talk to me about what's going on at your workplace.
All right, so rein it back in. So we just want to focus right now on the particular instance and kind of drawing out our thought process here. So you think that maybe an alternative explanation that there's a lot going on at work. So that's good. What other kind of things do you think could have been going on?
you know, with me leaving my job earlier on to help raise our son, to be a stay-at-home mom, it can be difficult sometimes financially, and that can put strain on our family. And I understand that, but it's also like
Okay,
investing time.
So what I'm hearing you say is that maybe you could think about it in a way that he's kind of providing for your family, and that
Yes.
even though you wanted his input, that's kind of what's first on his mind. Okay, good job. So I know last week we talked a little bit about some cognitive distortions people can have when things play out in kind of a less than helpful way, just like this situation. So after we've kind of drawn this out, can you identify any of those cognitions that we talked about that maybe were happening when you were thinking, you know, work is more important than me and my family?
I guess putting forth the fact that I honestly, the first thing I think of is just maybe that was how I was raised, but you know this, that family is just first and foremost, regardless of financial situations. But the way he was raised is that he was raised, you know, kind of in a strapped household that,
Okay.
you know, financially you need to take care of your family. So family was always the first, I guess the first thought in mind, but we have two different approaches, I guess.
So can you think of any of the distortions we talked about before that we had kind of identified, any that maybe played out in this particular instance? I know we had talked about one where you kind of, well, not you, but people sometimes will kind of take instances and take them out of context. Whereas,
I guess I just,
like, he's always
you're right,
leaving
yeah,
for
I
work.
just take, I find specific instances, I guess. And
Yeah.
I run with them and
And
I
that's-
group them together.
And that's really common because those are day-to-day things that happen, and they happen often. And so I'll remind you, so mental filter is one that we talked about, how you kind of filter out the good things that go on and you really focus on, he always leaves for work, he always does this.
So can I interrupt real quick?
Yeah.
Giselle, can you give us or provide us an example where you felt that he was more supportive of you and your family?
I guess leaving for work on a Sunday where we both kind of agreed, not directly, but kind of agreed that we both had it off. And typically on Sundays we just do, you know, family things and work around the house, but you decided that you needed to leave for work. It's a double-edged sword for the fact that, like I said, Sundays we don't typically work, and that he felt that going to the office would have provided more for our family. I mean,
What were times
it's
that
also-
what were times that you felt like he did provide, like he was supportive and put the family first, that you mentioned is a strong value that you have?
well, you had a business meeting in October that you completely skipped because we decided to take a vacation to Indianapolis, which I appreciate, but it was still,
So that was a good example. I think barring any kind of but, ifs, ands, or buts, that's a really good example of the time that he did that for your family.
But I can't do that all the time. So it's
Right. So our kind of
I know you
prerogative in kind of teasing out this with the activity we just did is being able to identify those things and not always focusing on the times that it doesn't feel great. So thank you, Giselle. That was a good job. We're gonna shift gears now and kind of get Walter's side of the perspective so that he can kind of identify some.
Thank goodness. Sorry, dear.
Sure. So Walter, do you mind sharing with us your point of view of the situation?
We could leave off of what she said. She planned to do this birthday party, and I go to work. She's planning on it, and I just go do my own business and support the family and everything like that. And she just blows up my phone. Like, it's just something that I wasn't expecting. Actually, I was expecting because it's been occurring much more nowadays. But yeah, it's just blowing up the phone, acting like I don't. It's just.
So after this occurred of her blowing up your phone, how did you feel? What were some
I
feelings
felt
that you?
attacked. I felt like completely attacked. It wasn't like my boss was attacking me. It was like my family was attacking me. It was much deeper. You know what I mean? So I feel not appreciative.
So you didn't feel appreciative because you felt like you were under attack since you went on to work and you looked at that as
Instead
was your
of
way to
planning,
support
I
your
guess.
family.
Yeah, instead of planning, yeah.
okay. And what were some automatic thoughts that you experienced?
Just that I'm not around as much, probably. I don't know. She doesn't appreciate it.
She doesn't appreciate it for
The
someone.
time that I put in.
So it sounds like automatically you start thinking about Giselle not being supportive, that she doesn't appreciate you, that you feel like she's attacking you and your work ethic.
I'm sorry, but I feel like spending more than 2 hours on a Sunday with your son is more important.
Okay, Giselle,
She's never satisfied,
Can we give-
obviously.
we're going to split this up and make sure Walter has his chance to explain.
Like,
how
I
he
give her
felt.
as much as she wants. She asks for things. She asks for income. She asks for, she has no budget. But she's never satisfied. She's never satisfied with feelings. She's never satisfied with what I put in. Like,
Sure.
I understand the birthday party. First birthday party is great. But what would that birthday party be without money?
Okay, so you're saying that it sounds like you feel like all the time she shows that she doesn't appreciate you. What cognitive distortion does that sound like that we went over last week?
I really don't recall.
No, sure, that's fine. Does it sound like the all or nothing cognitive distortion where,
Kind of, because it's never been like that. So,
where you're feeling like she's either always going to support you or is never supporting you?
right now, it's never support.
So does that sound like the all or nothing
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
distortion? So I want you to think of some exceptions where you felt like she was supportive. Can you give me a time that you felt like she was really supportive or really appreciative of all the hard work you've done?
Yeah, early in our relationship, I would consistently work a lot like I do now. She would understand that, and I wouldn't have time to go for lunch sometimes. So I would make time for
That
lunch.
was 2 years ago.
Exactly, and work hasn't changed much than 2 years ago.
I think it's important to acknowledge though that he's picking out an exception, and maybe that's something we can talk about later.
But yeah, she would come to my work and she would make lunch for me. We have lunch together, and I'd go back to work.
So it sounds like you remember times where she was there to support you and she would do nice things such as bring you lunch, and those were ways that she showed that she appreciated all
Yeah.
the hard work you do. So now thinking about that and going back to your statement where you feel like she never appreciates your work, how true do you think that statement is?
I think it's like more over exaggerated, but yeah.
So on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 feeling that you have zero support from Giselle and 10 feeling that she's always supportive, where do you see that?
Definitely a 0. Around 8. It's just that
Eight
constantly.
seems pretty high. Giselle, how does that sound to hear that you're at an 8?
I don't know. I guess just hearing it from him and putting us in a neutral situation, it makes me feel that I was critical, but I understand what happens is it's work related, and I know we can't do everything together. And 2 years ago was before we had our son, and now that we have our son, it's difficult.
Sure.
And having children can put a lot of strain on relationships. So how do you guys feel about the exercise we did today, and kind of do you feel like you could apply it to
It's
other
gonna take work.
situations?
It took some work, but it definitely overturned some stones that I didn't know was there. So I understand a lot more.
Good. Well, first off, I want to just praise you guys on being committed to the session and giving each other the turns to kind of express how you felt. You both have a piece of paper that I want you to take home with you. It basically outlines what we did in our session today. Where what I want you to do is, Giselle, whenever you feel like your needs aren't being met, or Walter, whenever you feel like you're unappreciated, I want you to go through, kind of slow down everything, and write down the situation that you're experiencing. From there, I want you to pay attention to the emotional response that you have, and then from there, go to automatic thoughts, and then I'm gonna give you an extra. Do you think they need extra paper explain cognitive distortions?
Yeah.
again?
I'll give you guys the handout on the cognitive distortions, and you can kind of pick out the ones that you feel like fit kind of what you're experiencing.
So after you're going through automatic thoughts, try to ask yourself, is it any of the cognitive distortions that we talked about in previous sessions? And if it is, make sure you write that down. And then look for that exception. I want you to weigh out the question and see if there's any evidence that supports your thoughts and feelings. Is there any questions?
I think I just have to read up on this.
Sure. And we can plan another session maybe on reviewing the cognitive distortions. There's so many that I know it can.
All right. Well, good work today.
Okay. Thank you, you guys.
Thank you.